morning, everybody, and welcome to this year's annual safety conference. We're focusing this year on air traffic management, its safety, the impact of the COVID crisis and the recovery, the demands of an ever-greener future, and the possibilities and challenges posed by new technologies. The event is co-organised with Slovenia, which currently holds the European presidency, and with EUROCONTROL. We will start with 5 short keynote speeches, just to set the scene. They'll be followed by 3 panel discussions, and we'll close with a final wrap-up. In a change from last year, all of our panelists and 2 of our speakers are actually with us here in Cologne. And we have around 1,000 participants joining us online. In the panel sessions later, you'll be able to submit questions. Let's start by hearing from State Secretary for Slovenia, Aleš Mihelič.
Dear EASA hosts, dear Mr. Patrick Key, Director of EASA, representatives from the member states and participants from aviation community. Thank you very much for inviting me to address you. With great pleasure, I welcome you today on behalf of the Presidency of the Republic of Slovenia of the Council of the EU. I wish I could address you all in person, as it's already the 2nd time the EASA Safety Conference is organized in virtual form. Nevertheless, EASA is by organizing, and as we are by participating at this event, demonstrating the ability to cope with the challenges and turn them into an opportunity. In this case, the opportunity to debate on very important issue. The ability to adapt is one of the preconditions for resilience, which is one of the goals of the Presidency of Slovenia, along with sustainability. Aviation is one of the transport modes most affected by the pandemic. Hence, we need to ensure the recovery of the sector and make it more resilient. However, despite of the operational and economic challenges, recovery should maintain the foundation of aviation, its safety. I believe EASA decided wisely and with a vision when choosing the theme of this conference. Currently, we are dealing with the most important legislative act for European air traffic management, the recast of the single European sky framework. It's important for our presidency, besides the 2nd large dossiers in the field of aviation on alternative fuels. When amending Fundamental Legal Act, we must act prudently while keeping respect of the safety. Any new arrangements must adequately address it as paramount. The proposal has the potential to prepare the system for future crises. The environmental aspect, or please let me use the term climate aspects, and their proper inclusion in the legal framework is the next challenging task. Therefore, the theme of this year's conference, Safety in Air Traffic Management, is the subject which is perfect to debate on right now. The 3 panels will be reflecting on safety, environment, and technology. Firstly, we have to come to themes with effects of ATM safety performance and think how to go further by even making it better. No matter how well the ATM community is performing, there is always room for improvement. Secondly, we must think of the needed contribution of European ATM stakeholders to Green Deal's ambitious targets. Finally, new technologies are the pillars of the future of European development programs, but we should support digital transformation of ATM environment and promote solutions that will contribute long-term and back the goals the EU pursues. Dear participants, I believe a lot will be said and heard today. I hope the presentations will contribute to the future development of the European ATM. I wish you all a very productive conference, fruitful discussions, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mihelič. Our second speaker is well known to many in this audience. From the European Commission, the Director General of DG Move, Henrik Hololei.
Dear friends, it's such a pleasure to take part in this event, sadly though virtually. But I'm there with the spirit, and I'm sure that next time when we meet, it will be a different setting. It's also very good that this year EASA annual safety conference focuses on the air traffic management. Safety and ATM go very much together, and there is a lot more we can do to create synergies between different actors. We all know that in the aviation and ATM, more specifically, safety always comes first. This is in the DNA of this sector. And this always takes the center stage in aviation ecosystem. Today, we are recovering from the worst crisis the civil aviation has experienced over the century. And this recovery means that we not only recover, but we need to build back better and more sustainably. No doubt, this will also accelerate wider change and put sustainability and smart digital solutions in the forefront of the process, as there is a clear need to make the sector functioning more efficiently. When we launched decades ago the Single European Sky concept, our main objective was to develop a highly performing European ATM system that would allow for sufficient capacity, scalability with the highest level of safety, while reducing costs and environmental impacts. Today, these objectives are still entirely valid. We realize the need for scalable ATM capacity to manage air traffic efficiently and contribute to the climate goals. ATM must be part of the solution, and that is why we finally need to deliver a genuine single European sky. We are also in the middle of the change where our airspace as we know it is significantly enlarging. We will have in the lower altitude the emergence of drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, the so-called new kids on the block that would be in a few years natural participants of the aviation ecosystem. And we need to do the utmost to integrate them safely and efficiently. Equally, there will be operations in the high altitude airspace as supersonic aircrafts will fill that space in not too distant future. Again, we have the same challenge to make sure it is safe and that it would be successfully integrated to airspace. And for that, it is very important that we can build on the airspace architecture study, which was completed a few years ago and which have served us extremely well in order to redesign our airspace and integrate the new players. This also means that the ATM providers need to prepare for these new categories of airspace users and extend the management of operations beyond the current limits of the airspace. All these developments require significant investments into innovation and exploiting the potential of automation with highly connected systems enabled by extensive digital solutions. However, having said that, we need to be very mindful of the new type of threats, namely cybersecurity. As there are more digital solutions, there are potentially also more backdoors that need to remain closed, as we need to focus on delivering highest level of cybersecurity. This is definitely a challenge for the future. Safety is and will remain a fundamental element in our aviation legal framework, and we fully trust Patrick and EASA in their focus on rulemaking and oversight. Safety is also an essential element covered in the CES technological pillar, the CESAR project. I'm glad that the links between the future CESAR 3 and EASA are going to be strengthened to ensure earlier involvement from EASA. This is in particular important to make sure that more mature projects that are close to deployment will be actually deployed faster. When we talk about sustainability, we are well aware that delivering on CES helps us to reduce aviation carbon footprint by around 10%. This is a lot, especially when we know that there is no silver bullet nor a single solution to make the aviation sector carbon neutral in the short term. Sustainable aviation fuels will obviously play a significant role in this, but it takes time when they become widely available for the sector. Meanwhile, we need to concentrate supporting the existing measures of this range of measures in the basket, and more efficient flying and more efficient flight paths might give us good results already very soon. But for that, you also need political will. Stop the conservative thinking of we have always done like that, and help to deliver the change and modernization. This is the task for all of us. Finally, let me highlight the role of digitalization and smart solutions. They can go a long way to help to tackle the inflexibility we see today and to offer better service quality. Artificial intelligence, machine learning are all the tools we can count on in the future to make flying even safer and more efficient. This will also bring a big change to the ATM community and also the necessary skill sets that are required for the future. We need to support and facilitate this transition. A digital transformed aviation will use targeted data and information through automated and connected solutions to improve the overall performance on the system from safety, efficiency and cost perspective, but also from the point of view of sustainability. Aviation can take full advantage of advanced digital technologies to generate new services, optimize current ones while delivering a better experience and benefits to all stakeholders. This is also the reason why the CES2 Plus legislative proposal aims to build a true European market for data services that will support air traffic service providers. By defining the certification requirements for such services, we will continue to ensure on the high standards of safety, including for pan-European data service providers to be certified by EASA. Dear friends, I wish you all thought-provoking and interesting conference. Try to think out of the box how to effectively address the challenges of the aviation of the future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hololei. We're particularly delighted to have our next speaker here with us in Cologne. Marianne Baronescu, as well as being a member of the European Parliament and its Transport Committee, is the father of EASA's new basic regulation and one of the top experts in Europe on aviation in general. Thank you very much for joining us here at our conference today, and over to you, Mr. Marinescu.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm first time in this conference, and I see that it's a well organized and it's a big organization here, a very serious organization here in EASA office in Köln. So yes, ATM it's a very important part of the aviation industry. All let's say parts are activities are important. The operators, the ATM, the airports are important, and the most important actor in this industry is the passenger. Now, I think that we have to speak about many challenges for this period and for the future. First of all, the COVID pandemic crisis showed that we have some problems in the system. So ATM should be present. Doesn't matter that no plane is on the skies flying up there. So at the end, I think that the charging system should be adapted in order to cope with all this, also with this kind of crisis, because I don't know if it's normal and fair that the passenger to pay a service that they never got it. So we have to think about this very seriously for the future. Now, as you know, aviation is under attack, heavy attack now in this period. We have the challenge of Green Deal, And now we have on the table a package of legislative files that will change our life in the future, and also will change the life of aviation. So we have the refuel, we have the ETS for aviation, which is modified. And we have the attitude of, let's say, the green people against aviation. There are requests to replace flights with trains, and also to limit as much as possible the number of flights, including through prices. They are considering that sometimes the price of a ticket is too low. I don't know if everything will happen in the future, but some will happen for sure in the future. So some of these threats will be applied. So will affect also ATM at the end, because if the number of flights will decrease, ATM should be there, as I said, and should work and should be paid. Another challenge is also digitalization, because we have to do it. We cannot stop the progress. The satellite, the space technology is present already and will be involved more and more. So ATM has to be part of this. We are speaking about digital sky. We have to do this. So the ATM companies should be prepared to adapt to this new technology. Now, there is, as Mr. Hololei says Single European Sky, this concept that we are speaking since a lot of time, but is not yet in place, would be a first step to fulfill a part of these new requirements for aviation. At least more comfort for passengers, but also decreasing the emissions. I don't know if it will be 10%, but at least 5% will be as a reduction of emissions, and this without any cost. It's very simple to show that aviation is trying also to contribute to the reduction of emission and to arrive to be neutral in 2050. But for this we need political will, which is not for the moment present. As you know, there is the file is in negotiation with the Council. We didn't make, I can say, almost any progress, because the Council modified a lot the proposal of the Commission, and they are keeping their position. They don't want to compromise. At the end, the position of the Council is less than the actual situation. So the new proposal of the Commission is adjusting the situation which is now in reality, in working. So only some small corrections, let's say, will be introduced if we shall arrive to have an agreement on this file. The most, let's say, important modification is the independence of PRB and the system to approve the performance plans. But we have to admit that this activity, ATM, is a monopoly. So when you have a monopoly, you have to introduce measures to regulate that monopoly. That's it. It's not an attack to the sovereignty or to the military or to the subsidiarity. No, it's only an attempt to make this industry more efficient and to provide more benefits for the passengers. So the member states should understand that they have to look more carefully to this file, not to leave it only to the NSP's, judgment, but also to give some political attention to this file in order to arrive to a good result for industry and for passengers, of course. As I said, we cannot stop the progress, the technical progress. That's impossible. And if the NSPs will not understand that they have to adapt to the new requirements, I think that in the future they will have a lot of problems, because some of them they will adapt and they will go forward, and some of them they will stay behind, and then in that moment there will be a lot of problems. So of course, for the questions, I am ready to answer to any question, and thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marinescu. We're not actually doing questions right at this moment, but we'll come to that section later. We're now going to hear from one of our co-hosts for today's conference, Eamon Brennan, the Director General of EUROCONTROL.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be at the EASA Annual Safety Conference, which this year is focusing on safety in air traffic management. And this is a real welcome initiative by EASA. I think it's important when we look at air traffic management generally to consider that only 2 years ago in the European network we had our busiest day ever with 37,000 flights. It was a year that was plagued by delays. 1/3 of flights were delayed, average delays were 40 minutes, and there was a lot of pressure on the system from an operational point of view, but also you were getting towards the edge from a safety point of view as well with the existing network. And this is one of the reasons we're launching a new network management system in EUROCONTROL. You know, when we look at safety priorities in air traffic management, these are not new. The whole area of the controller, blind spot, transponder issues, resolution advisories, all of these things are something that we've known about for many years. And really, they don't go away, they don't change. But what I just want to say to you today is I want to look at the systemic issue of safety. And really, to me, it falls into kind of 3 categories. First of all, we know, accidents and incidents. We've learned as much as we can from accidents and incidents, in my view. You always learn, but we've got the big learning. And then there's the huge 90% of normal routine operations. And here we're not as well informed. We don't have the same kind of information that we have from the incidents. And of course, then there's the exceptional performance, which is where somebody does something really good, like in an incident or an accident. But I'm glad to say that we've started to move into the middle. And over the last number of years, we've built up an amount of data that we can use realistically to give us some outcomes and do some very good analysis. So I'm looking forward to working with EASA in building up this. Can I now come to a topic that I would describe as something we have been discussing for 20 years? I'm sorry to put it on the table again, but I think we do need to talk about it today. And it's the old story. Why does it take 2 to 3 months maximum to convert from an A320neo to a 737 MAX? 2 different companies with 2 different systems. Whereas to convert an ATCO, often on the same system, it takes 15 months. Now, realistically, with modern technology, and I know all about terrain and I know all about organization, I still don't believe that it should take this amount of time. And this is a problem that's stopping ATCO mobility. It's stopping many ATCOs having exciting careers in different companies, but it's also an impediment to the system. So I think that we have to start looking at certification based on systems. And in my view, what we need to look at is the whole idea of system-based training. In other words, why don't we certify on a system as the main part, and then the smaller part is the locality and the area? In my view, this is faster and more flexible. And this is an area where I believe that EASA and the ANSPs can work very closely together. Remember, we're talking about a digital European sky. we really have to do something about it. And ATCO licensing would be a very good way to do this. And I know that EASA are currently looking at this and have a number of proposals. But just to go back to the basics, why does it take so long? And is there something better we can do about it? So let's discuss that today in an open way. I also want to mention the whole area of sustainability. From my point of view, safety still remains the #1 priority. But we need to have a balance of safety and sustainability. And we need to be sure that airlines can fly the most optimal fuel-efficient trajectories. Can I tell you one thing? Since the COVID has started, we have reduced about 2,000 RADs, that's, route adherence directives from the system. And we hopefully will not put them back in. So we should be able to fly more fuel-efficient trajectories in the years ahead. I also want to just say to you is that together with EASA, we did make a number of suggestions basically for the single European sky. And basically, these are our inputs, which we jointly did with EASA, and they were well received. But we also have to remember that the green SES is where we're at. So we've had COP26, which is still ongoing in Glasgow, and we're all listening to all of this, all the ministers on TV, the prime ministers, and we're listening to blah, 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 and all of the things that has been said as well by Greta and all of the other teams. So green SES is something we actually have to do something about, and the way to do this, in my view, is digitization. And there's a number of factors in this, and this is where we can work together with EASA to do this. I want to compliment EASA and Patrick on organising this conference, so I hope that you enjoy the day and have a very good conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Eamon Brennan, in the last section of that, almost immediately passed to our next speaker, who is EASA's Executive Director, Patrick Key.
Good morning. It's my turn to welcome you today for this 11th EASA Annual Safety Conference. Maybe a few words about these conferences. When I arrived in EASA in 2013, there had been already 3 conferences which were all on technical safety topics and taking place in Cologne. It was mostly for technical experts level, and I thought that once a year it was an excellent opportunity for the aviation community to gather and discuss, but with a mixture of technical as well as policy topics. I also thought that it would be a good event to put under the auspices of the EU presidency, something that we have done since 2014. The first such conference was in Rome, and it was the effective official launch of our General Aviation Roadmap. And we then had conferences on topics such as cybersecurity, innovation, training. And the last physical event took place in 2019 in Finland, dealing with airlines operations. This is the first time in the history of EASA that we organize an event on air traffic management. Maybe a few words on what we do on ATM. We received the legal mandate to work on ATM in 2009, and for the last 12 years, our teams have been steadily working on air navigation services rules, including on ATCO training and licensing, on oversight of member states since 2012, and on organizations oversight. I don't know if you are aware of that, but EASA currently is certifying and overseeing 20 organizations, including the network manager, the EGNOS service provider, Ariane, aeronautical information data providers such as Jeppesen, NavBlue, and others. And finally, EASA has prepared the first rules on U-space service provision, the urban airspace, in which, as Henrik Hololei mentioned, there will be a lot of future developments in the near future. We thought that ATM would be a good topic to concentrate on today, because we believe that, like in many other sectors in aviation, the COVID crisis has had a deep impact on the field. And now that hopefully aviation is on the path towards recovery, it is certainly the opportunity, like in other sectors, to recover differently, to have lessons learned from the crisis, and to launch activities and reforms which maybe would not have been possible before. The positive thing about the crisis is that there was at no stage any threat on safety. The European air traffic management system has been robust, stable, and safe. And we should give credit to the sector, which was navigating in very uncertain and unstable circumstances, which were far from the conditions for which it was designed. We will have a first panel in a few minutes dealing with this topic: safety, recovery, COVID crisis. The financial and economic crisis in the last years has lowered somewhat the pressure on environmental performance, but we see now, and it was mentioned by Marianne and by all other speakers, we see now that the pressure is coming back, even greater than before. It is a challenge, but it can also create opportunities. Air traffic management has a key role to play in this. We have some studies or trials showing that a perfect green flight could emit up to 10% less CO2 than the current trajectories. This is a fundamental discussion that we need to have, and this will take place in the second panel for today. And finally, I've participated to a number of meetings and events with other parts of the industry, which clearly showed that the COVID crisis has been an opportunity to digitalize, to modernize telecommunications and IT. And also, the COVID crisis has triggered a lot of changes in terms of culture, in terms of mindset for teleworking, for using more the telecommunication means and IT. Again, I believe that possibly this crisis created opportunities to launch changes which would have been more difficult before. And we will have a panel, the third panel this afternoon, which will deal with that. On all those topics, we, EASA, are here to listen, to get ideas on what to do next, and orient our strategy, in particular on rulemaking. I'm very pleased and proud to have such distinguished speakers accepting to take part in this event, and I look forward to a very fruitful and interesting day. Thank you for your attention.